Good morning, everybody. Welcome to class this morning. Just a couple of announcements before we get started. The first one is just a general college announcement. And that is that when we come back from the Thanksgiving holiday, you got an email about this this morning, that staff on campus will be operating virtually for the most part for the remainder of the semester after the Thanksgiving holiday. This is in order to kind of mitigate the number of people on campus, to try to keep things at a minimum, just so we can, keep the numbers here low, to try to help keep the situation going nicely as we go into the end of the year. One of the things that does mean, however, is that if you would like to have a face-to-face meeting with your advisor or with somebody in the student affairs office, you probably need to set that up either today or tomorrow before the Thanksgiving holiday, because after we return from the Thanksgiving holiday, they will be basically virtual for the remainder of the semester. So if you need to get registered for spring, get some things out of the way there, in terms of advising, things of that nature, and you want to meet with them in person, that's something that you either need to do today or tomorrow as quickly as possible, because they will be going virtual after the Thanksgiving holiday. If you need to see me, I'll still be here on campus. Classes will still be going on normally after the Thanksgiving holiday. So I'll still be here observing my typical schedule. So as of right now, nothing is changing for my schedule yet. Again, that email is just concerning staff and the staff side of things. So if you need help from your advisor, if you need help registering for spring, and you would like to meet with them in person, then you probably need to get on that either today or tomorrow prior to the Thanksgiving holiday, so that you can get that taken care of, because they will be going virtual after the holiday. Speaking of the holiday, that brings me to my next thing. I'll be finalizing the grades from the last module. I'll be trying to do that today so that I can get everything out of the way for before I leave for the holiday on Thursday. Thanksgiving holiday on Thursday. The college will be closed Thursday and Friday of this week. That's why we're having our live stream today. I'll be finalizing our grades from module 9 today. I will be handling it pretty much the same way that I handled the module 8 grades. If your grade on the assignment will help your final grade in an appreciable way, then I will give you the grade that you earned. Otherwise, I will exempt the grade. I'm sure you all are relieved, I know I am, with the fact that, we're back with Module 10 now. We're back with the old kind of style of stuff, the way we were back previous to Module 7, the modules 1 through 6, where we don't have these virtual machines anymore that were causing us all this trouble. Everything is just the old style where, it's questions, it's answers, it's videos. These are things that we've done in the past. These are things that we know work and should give us no problem. So the current module, module 10, should give us no issue. And the final module, the final content module, the Hour of Code module, doesn't utilize any of the publisher material at all. It's a special module that we like to include. So you don't have to worry about that anymore after this current module. So that's what we have. For the remainder of the semester. If you have any questions about any of that, just let me know. Send me an email, and I will respond to you as quickly as possible. I might be a little slower to respond over the Thanksgiving holiday, but you know that's one of the it's one of the situations with the holiday, right? I would expect you all to be enjoying the holiday with your families. So I would hope that you might expect likewise with me. You know, I'm going to try to get everything that's expected of me done early, so maybe that you can get everything that's expected of you done early as well, so you can have the next few days to rest, relax, and enjoy the holiday. So we're talking about computer security and privacy, and we're just going to talk about this for a little while. This is one of my favorite modules to do in person, right? Because it's one of the modules where people usually have a lot of questions, because people want to know how they can stay safe online, and what this is and what that is, and you know, they've heard about this and what does that mean, and how can I protect myself from this thing and that thing, and is this real, or is it just in the movies? So doing this online loses a little bit of something. Because it is harder for you all to ask me all these questions in the normal sort of class format. But if you do have any of those sorts of questions, I would hope that you would reach out to me and let me know, because I would be more than willing to answer them. Because really, when we're talking about computer security and privacy, we're talking about really one of the most important topics that we talk about all semester long. And really, in terms of you as an individual, whether it is personally or professionally, this is one of the biggest topics that you're going to encounter in the next 5, 10, 15, 20, however many years, as you use technology. You know, these are situations that are here. They're current, they're present, they're not going to change. And so understanding how to deal with computer security issues and privacy issues, and to protect yourself as you use a computer and as you go online, is absolutely critical. You know, really, if we could take this course and just make it about one thing or two things, what I would choose to make it about would be computer security, privacy, and information literacy. Like, these are the biggest pieces of what you would need to know, really, about technology and using technology in the future. Now, as we start the idea of computer security, right? One of the biggest topics that we'd want to start talking about would be this idea of unauthorized access versus unauthorized use. And these might be terms that you've heard before. What does it mean for something to be accessed in an unauthorized manner versus something to be used in an unauthorized manner? And we can have some terms. We can have some terms here that we can surround all of these concepts with. Hackers, for example. That's something that you've definitely heard about. The hacker. Who are hackers? What are hackers? The concept of a hacker. What is unauthorized access? What is unauthorized use? And what is network security? So when we get into the concept of unauthorized access, that's this idea where somebody is gaining access to a system that they're not allowed to use, that does not belong to them, or that they've not been given permission to use. So when we are talking about unauthorized access, that's what we're talking about. Somebody is gaining access to a system that they don't have permission to use. Now, that could be something just as simple as somebody just walking in to a room, sitting down on a computer that they're not supposed to use and beginning to use it. That qualifies as unauthorized access. Or that could be, like you see in the movies, people from remote locations hacking into different servers and terminals across the globe to gain access via other means, and that's real. While the methodology that they use on the movies isn't always accurate, there are people, and we know that from via other means, there are people that utilize technology to try to gain access to systems for various results. Well, what you might not know is there are several different types of hackers. We have what we consider to be white hat hackers, and we have what we consider to be black hat hackers. And this terminology kind of comes from the old days of like Western movies. Like if your grandpa, likes to sit around and watch Westerns, you might have kind of seen this sort of trope as you were visiting him. The good guy wears a white hat and the bad guy wears a black hat. And that's how we can kind of tell them apart. As we approach the idea of hacking, you can hack for good. And it all depends on motivation and what you do with the information that you get. Right? So as a white hat hacker, my primary goal is not to steal information. My primary goal is to help people strengthen their systems. I'm looking for vulnerabilities. I'm looking for issues. But then instead of using those issues to exploit and take things in order to profit, I'm going to in turn say, look, I gained access to your system. And in gaining access to your system, I was able to do it via this channel. I was able to get these credentials and log into here and go through this route. And these are areas that you need to tighten down. No data was stolen. Nothing was negatively impacted. And in the long run, the systems are stronger. There's actually an entire business dedicated to what we would consider to be white hat hacking. It's a very, it's a very popular, very strong business these days. We call it penetration testing, where businesses will actually hire hackers to try to see if they can get access to their sites. And if they can, tell them how so they can figure out how to fix it. Now, the black hat hacker, that's the one that we hear about more on the news, and we see depictions of in the movies. These are the people who are trying to get in there and steal the information, steal the social security numbers and the credit card numbers and all of the data that is valuable. That's one of the things that we've talked about before, is that one of the most valuable things that we have is our information. And in doing so, in taking our information, these black hat hackers, they can make a decent amount of money. So it can be fairly profitable. I mean, if it wasn't profitable, there wouldn't really be an incentive to do it, right? So when we consider why, I mean, there's your big reason. And we've got a couple other terms here that I'd like for us to define real quick. One is war driving, and the other one's kind of related, somewhat, and it's called piggybacking. And war driving is kind of what we see depicted here in the lower center of the screen, with this guy in his car on his laptop. I'm not sure how many hackers or how many people actually engage in war driving these days, but this was a popular technique at one point to look for unsecured wireless networks or poorly secured wireless networks with a weak password. Because essentially what you could do is you could drive around in a car with your laptop open and just look for Wi-Fi networks as you pass through neighborhoods. And if you found one that was open, or one that you could easily crack the password on, then you could gain access to it. And one of the things about being on a network is that once you're on a network, you are on the network. You can gain access to the traffic that's on the network if you know what you're doing. You can see the packets that are flowing in and out, between different nodes on the network. And you can capture these packets and you can get information from them. So it's more than just stealing Wi-Fi. So when we think about that, we can bring into this concept of piggybacking, which is just being on someone else's network. And we can think about the potential of piggybacking to cause us harm. Because some people, you've seen it kind of here and there, maybe, it might be a meme for some people to kind of put their SSID as being like, oh, yell this out the window for the password. And, like younger people maybe liking to share their Wi-Fi with other people, or sharing the wireless network, or utilizing other people's wireless networks around them. And when you're on a network with other people, those other people have access to the information that you're sending back and forth. Now, whether or not they have the knowledge and the capability to actually capture those packets and decode them and take the information from them, that might be another issue. But can you take that for granted? Especially, nowadays when you can go online and you can get a step-by-step list of how to basically do any basic hacking operation that you would like to do. So when we consider things like sharing Wi-Fi networks or being on a shared Wi-Fi network, like at a coffee shop, that especially is where something like a VPN, which you've probably heard advertised if you've ever watched a YouTube video once, you've probably heard advertisements for VPNs, virtual private networks. It's where something like that comes in especially handy. Because that VPN is going to give you a layer of obfuscation that's going to encrypt your data so that someone else on that network with you is not going to be able to capture those packets and decode them. Because you're sending it through that virtual private network instead of the network that you're on. It's a little more complicated than we have time to kind of discuss here. So that's the big deal about unauthorized access, but we can kind of contrast that with the idea of unauthorized use. Right? So unauthorized access is when you're not allowed to use something or access something. But unauthorized use could be you are allowed to use this computer, but you're only allowed to use it for certain purposes. And then you use it for a purpose that you're not allowed to use it for. Like you can think about that in terms of like the computers in the library here at the college. There are certain things that you're allowed to use those computers for and certain things that you're not allowed to use those computers for. So if you start to use the computers in the library for a purpose other than what you're allowed to use them for, a lot of things could potentially happen. You could get banned from the college, you could lose your computer privileges, various other things could happen based on unauthorized use policies. So just because you're allowed to use a certain machine doesn't mean that you're allowed to do whatever you want on a certain machine. So how do we prevent unauthorized access to a machine? Well, probably the biggest thing, and the biggest thing that we probably need to work on just as individuals, is having strong passwords. Having strong passwords. The majority of people don't have strong passwords. Around this time every year, the list of weak passwords, the list of the most utilized passwords comes out. And every year it's still practically the list of the same passwords that you see. Maybe with a few kind of flowing in and out. And they're always usually like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or password 1, 2, 3. Or ABC password. I might have even just said one of your passwords. In general, we don't have strong passwords because we want something that's really easy to remember. We don't like working with difficult things to remember. It's hard. Right? Like we just want to be able to use our computers and access things and do what we need to do. But so does everybody else. And the people who want to steal our information want to be able to access our things as well. So we need to work on building stronger passwords. Another thing is having secured facilities. If I can walk into a room and gain access to a computer, then it really doesn't matter how strong your password is. You know, one of the things that they say is that, you know, your digital security starts at the hardware store. You know, having good locks and having your doors installed correctly, believe it or not. You know, one of the things that I've looked at, you know, that we've studied here for our cybersecurity program here at the college is physical penetration testing, which is really just a fancy word for breaking and entering. Lockpicking and door shimming and gaining access to rooms where computers and servers might be. And it's a real thing that people will do to get access to equipment. And so if we don't secure our facilities, if we don't have strong locks, if we don't have our doors installed correctly, if we don't have security systems and man traps and various other, you know, identification systems and various other systems in place that are going to physically secure our facilities, then we're going to leave ourselves open to attack as well. Firewalls help to guard our traffic in and out. It monitors things going into and out from our systems. Most modern home routers that you get from your ISP nowadays have some kind of firewall built into them. Some kind of rudimentary firewall. Most of them do. It still doesn't hurt to have a software firewall installed or even getting a secondary hardware firewall to put on your home network. What these firewalls do is they monitor traffic going in and out. They make sure that the traffic that you want going in and out goes in and out, and the traffic that you don't want coming in or going out stays away. And then encryption, making sure your data that is going in and out is encrypted, coded. You know, and using VPNs are one way that we can help do that. So let's talk about securing accounts with passwords. And we have this picture here of a strong password generator. And your discussion for this module is kind of based around passwords. You have a bit of an interesting video that goes along with this module that takes a bit of a different look at passwords. When we think about passwords, one of the things that we need to think about is the idea of password entropy. And that's kind of what this strong password generator is kind of based on. When we talk about the idea of password entropy, essentially what we're talking about is this idea of password complexity. What it takes for a password to be difficult to decrypt. And so when we start to use different types of characters in our password, that's when we're introducing more entropy to our password. So if we just use all lowercase letters, our password has low entropy and it can be cracked within fractions of a second. But when we start to include lowercase and capital letters, and then numbers, and then symbols, and then maybe we start to put spaces in there and have separate words with numbers and lowercase letters and capital letters and numbers and symbols in each word, and we start to make it longer, all of a sudden our password entropy is raised exponentially. With the big idea being not to make a password uncrackable, because really, if you brute force it, every password is crackable at some point. Like, you're just trying every combination of letters, numbers, symbols. It's finite, right? There is a limit. But the more you add, and the more you change, and the more you switch up, the more combinations that have to be tried, the longer time that it takes, and it takes what could be done in a fraction of a second with just lowercase letters to years and years and years. So if I'm a hacker, right, and I'm trying to crack somebody's password, what am I going to do, right? Am I going to waste my time trying to crack somebody's super strong password? Am I going to waste weeks or even months trying to crack this super strong password? Or am I just going to go look for the next weak password that I can crack in a fraction of a second? And there are methods in which you can develop a super strong password that is easy to remember. One of the things that I like to tell people is to take a lyric from your favorite song. Maybe something from the middle. Take a few words out of it. And then in each of those words, replace some of the letters with symbols. Make sure some of the letters are capital, some of the letters are lowercase. And replace some of the letters with numbers. And then all of a sudden you have a super complex password based on something that you know very well, because of course you know every word to your favorite song. All you have to remember is how you standardized your symbol and number substitution. And then you have a super strong password and everything's great. Which is pretty good. You know, it's an easy way to make a super strong password that can help you remember it. I was just looking at my notes here just to see what else I'd like to talk about, and because we are getting close to time. And really, I think that's pretty much it. You know, the password's going to be the big thing. A lot of the other stuff that you're going to have heard before, you know, things like phishing. You know, we talked about phishing back in the Outlook module. Protecting ourselves from phishing. You know, when you get those emails that look like they're trying to get you to enter your information in to a website that you don't know whether it's real or not. You know, they're using a sense of urgency. They're trying to take advantage of your human nature to try to get you to quickly put your password and username in. You know, like the example that we have here is for Chase Bank. They could have the logo. It could look realistic, but they'll use words like, oh, you've got this issue, and if you don't resolve it quickly, then we'll suspend your account. And that's playing on your psychology, knowing that, hey, nobody wants their bank account closed. Everybody wants to be able to access their money. So if we try to throw people into a panic, then they'll be more likely to click on this link and enter in their personal information. Remember that if you get something like this, basically just to trash it, if you think it has the possibility of being real, you know your bank's website. You just go directly to your bank's website. Don't click on anything in the email. Just go directly to your bank's website. Enter in everything from there. Or just go to the bank and talk to somebody there and just try to find out what's up. Clickjacking is kind of interesting. I'll talk about it really quickly because I think that's something that's kind of prevalent that we need to talk about. And that's when something that looks like one thing is actually something else. And so it will take your click. And this is typically kind of where we get some viruses and things of that nature. Again, it's something that plays on psychology. A lot of these malicious activities all play on psychology. Right? Like the example here is like, oh, take the quiz to win your dream holiday. So like, of course, like we want to win our dream holiday. We want to win our dream vacation. So we're going to play. But when we click that play button, it's like when we mouse over that play button, it's going to hide the real play button and click another button that's going to delete our account or install some malware. And this is where, like we see a lot of those celebrity death hoaxes. A lot of that clickbait stuff that's, an obvious hoax. It's just a way to try to get you to click on something that's going to steal your click in order to do something else, like take your Facebook credentials or get you to download malware or something of that nature. So you want to be cognizant of the things that you're doing online. Maybe that celebrity did pass away. If they did, you could probably Google it and find out instead of just clicking this random Facebook story that popped up. Because more often than not, that's a scam, and there is software out there that can help us stay safe from viruses and malware. You know about antivirus software, presumably, hopefully, things like Norton Antivirus, Symantec, McAfee. There's all sorts of good antivirus and anti-malware software out there nowadays. There is one thing that I need to talk about that I forgot. And that's ransomware. Ransomware is in here. Because ransomware is a problem, and it's especially a problem for certain industries. Especially for those of you who are going in the healthcare field. Ransomware has been especially prevalent in the healthcare field for the past few years. And we can kind of talk about it in reference to some of the last few things, because oftentimes you'll see this with a phishing attack. Somebody will send what we call a spear phishing email to somebody who's in a healthcare field, or some kind of field with some kind of important job that revolves around data and information. And when they click that, it downloads this ransomware malware onto their machine. And what that malware does is it locks the computer and encrypts all the data until you pay them money. Typically in Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin, with the blockchain, it is traceable, but you can pass it around from wallet to wallet enough to where you can obfuscate it to a certain degree. And the idea here is just to try to make money. So think about that for a minute, if you will. You know, if you're working at a hospital or working in a doctor's office, and you get this email and you click the link and you get this ransomware installed on your computer, and all of a sudden the entire computer is locked down and all your data resources are encrypted. We're oftentimes talking about important work software, patient records, all sorts of information that would be on this computer. And you have no way of getting it back unless you pay. And there are actually hospitals and hospital systems that have started keeping Bitcoin as a contingency plan in the event that something like this happened at one of their facilities. Because there's no other way around it. And since the goal is to just make the money and get out of there, typically what they do is they do just go ahead and decrypt after the money's been paid. So that's another reason why we should be aware of our surroundings. Make sure that we are, not going to a website that we don't know what it is. Making sure that, we're not clicking on any mystery emails. Because the consequences could be severe. Very severe. So that's where we'll stop. I'll hang out in the chat for just a couple of minutes, just in case anybody who is with me today has any questions. If you're watching this later and you have any questions, just feel free to email, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. But that's all that I have for you for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.